Hi, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Smith, and this is the 12th short video in this series on how understanding psychotherapy and how it works is the best way to guide our practice. Well, this time I'm going to get really personal, and I'll tell you about the formula that I use for my own practice. It's very simple, but also very sophisticated. And so here we go. What I actually do is I am constantly seeking to improve the level of accurate empathy that I've achieved in understanding my client. And what is accurate empathy? As I've said before, it's an emotionally engaged, ever deepening understanding of the client's experience. To make that simpler and less scary, I'm going to break it down to 5 key questions. I mentioned these briefly in the video number 6, but this time we're going to look at them in a little bit more depth, and I'll give you a link to get to the sheet that explains this in more detail. So the first question is, what is the outward description of the entrenched maladaptive pattern of behavior or experience that's causing the client's distress? And, sometimes that's closely related. Sometimes it's not obvious. I've mentioned the example of the person who put herself down, and that was why her life was boring, which is what she came to therapy for, was because her life was boring. Okay. The second question is, this is really important. What is the dreaded unconscious proto-emotion that signals a threat, triggers emotion, and that the EMP is designed to avoid? Well, let's make that simple. When people have an EMP, when they have some maladaptive pattern that's causing trouble, it's triggered by the presence of, deep down in their unconscious mind, some kind of negative, painful, troublesome feeling that the inner mind wants to get rid of. And that is what I call the dread. It's very useful to use that word in practice because people sort of understand when you say, I think your inner mind is dreading something, they can very often come up with a really valuable conscious version of what that might be. The third question then is, what is your working hypothesis? What is your explanation of how this entrenched maladaptive pattern got started? What was the problem it was trying to solve? And what currently activates it? What triggers it today? The fourth question is, what would be an improved automatic response, a better way to respond? So if somebody responds by, let's say, becoming passive in the face of somebody else's anger, maybe they learn to stand up to that person or to articulate what their feelings are. So what is the improved version? And that's something that may need to be learned or adapted from somewhere else in the client's functioning. But it's important because it needs to be there for the inner mind to have something to trade in for the old, outdated response. And the fifth question, the last one, is, what is the antidote? What is the new and surprising information or experience that we need to deliver non-verbally, and that's going to disconfirm, it's going to give a better way of understanding something, maybe a bigger perspective. And with that different idea, like, let's say it's okay to stand up to people or to express your feelings under certain circumstances. With that, we're hoping that the inner schema is going to be rewritten according to that new information. So what is the antidote? And that's it. As we seek deepening answers, it does several good things. First of all, it builds trust, empathy, and motivation. So it takes care of a lot of those common factors that every therapy needs to have. It also fulfills the requirements for change by memory reconsolidation and extinction, by the way. And it does that by activating the old pattern and bringing a new, larger perspective to disconfirm that old truth. There is a little bit more that I do in therapy besides just seeking deeper answers to those 5 questions, and that is supporting the clients learning new behaviors and practicing those and supporting their motivation in general. So That's it. And that is the simplest way I have of describing how I conduct psychotherapy. It looks different with each person because it's very much adapted to that person's style and their needs. And sometimes you might think that I'm a CBT therapist, and other times you'd think I'm a psychodynamic therapist, but that's what I'm seeking to do. So that's it. And what I'd like you to do is, if you're interested in this approach to therapy, follow the QR code at the end of this video, and it will take you to a sheet that explains in more detail. This is then the end of the series of brief videos, and I'd like you to please share any questions you have with on the Substack, and let me know of other subjects that you'd like to hear about in future videos and articles. So thanks again for listening, and I'm sure there'll be a next time soon. I will see you then. Bye-bye.